Hello, I'm Allie,
I'm Deb.
and welcome to another episode of Connected Conversations.
Our relationships mean so much to us, so much that Deb and I are going to dedicate this whole segment about I feel one of the biggest relationships we have throughout our entire life, and that's our relationship with our family. And specifically, I'm not talking about our friends that are family that we might choose, though our family units and whatever that looks like. And this, I believe, is a really huge piece to the puzzle because a lot of our programs, our beliefs are built between 0 and 5, and then 5 to 8, almost finishing up the rest by the time we're teenagers. And the people that we surround ourselves, and whatever your family unit looks like, or if there was a divorce, or perhaps you had grandparents that were raising you, it has a major impact on the beliefs that you have, the quality of your relationships, and then how do you form them beyond just your family nucleus, I think is important because as you evolve and change, you want to take those into consideration. So today is all about how do you build this happy life and really work it in with your family, and what effect does your family have on your happiness, or how can you maneuver your happiness because you understand your family a little bit different as it evolves. So Deb, how, like, I feel like this
A
is a really,
loaded question.
this is a big topic. So people out there, I think it's a good one to really start sitting with, and we'll go through our own different families and how we've maneuvered them. Though I'm curious about your take on family and relationships and happiness.
Yeah, I think if COVID or the pandemic has taught us anything, those people in your bubble are so important. And I think for me, it really demonstrated how important my family is to me. And when you are cut off from some of those connections, we are meant to have connection. But when we're cut off from our family or our loved ones, how much that really impacted specifically me, but my kids as well. So it's a huge topic, and I definitely recognize some of my traits and how I relate to my kids are also mimicking maybe how my parents related to me.
Mm.
I wouldn't say I had a super open dialogue with my parents, and I don't know if it's maybe our generation or that time, but I certainly watch some parents and some mothers and daughters, and they're so tightly knit together. And I wouldn't say I have had that. I do think I'm getting closer as I get older with my parents. But I definitely recognize it with my relationship with my kids. I think I'm more open to dialogue, but I do recognize that my relationship with my daughter almost mimics exactly my relationship with my mother. So I'm just trying to kind of close that gap a little bit and, have those conversations with my kids. And I think it does. I think it starts with honesty and a conversation. What about you?
I got to commend you. Those are great notices, and especially to look in the mirror and think, oh, wow, maybe this relationship is just as close to maybe what you might have. I think it's easy to say, I never want to be like this. However, again, like if a lot of our programs, our beliefs are built when we're so young, it's really fascinating to be able to look into those relationships and see how there is similarities. I think for myself, I'm a middle child, so I have had that syndrome of peacekeeper or feeling left out. So I feel as though I was a bit of a lone wolf when I was a teenager. I went away to college and then drove across the country to Calgary, and I was happy there for 10 years. Not to say I didn't love my family, miss my family, though I didn't experience, I think, homesickness like some people I knew who traveled across the country do. And for myself, it was this just grace of independence. I know that I've carried resentment from my parents, and through personal development, I've been able to change that perspective of more appreciation, respect, of honoring who my parents were at the time in the capacity of which they could give and how they give, knowing that they're doing the best that they can. By no means did I have an awful childhood, and my parents did everything they could. For myself, when I was younger, I just didn't feel like a quite fit. So by me releasing some, again, like just silly resentments, like, why am I carrying this? Why am I blaming my parents? So if you're someone who's sitting there like, my parents, blah, 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 I'm blaming them. And especially if you're a little bit older, like, you got to grow up because you're choosing to suffer. You're choosing to blame someone else when you can be empowered. And I think when I started looking at my parents with appreciation and gratitude and getting to know them as people, not parents,
Mhm.
as human beings, it's been really cool, I think, for my own happiness to discover more about my heritage, understand more
Mhm.
about my childhood because I'm curious. And then for my siblings, it's been very different for each of them, though it's coming to a point where regardless if they're my best friends or they aren't, it's just appreciating everyone's journey. And for myself, happiness has come from surrendering of like that fairy tale life where this is what a sister relationship should look like, or I want that mother relationship because I have some friends that have really great relationships with their mom. Again, like you were saying, so close, call them every day,
Mhm.
talk to them all the time, vacation. That just wasn't our relationship, though. I don't doubt for a second my mom doesn't love me to bits and would do anything for me. So for myself, it was releasing the judgment or the expectation that I've saw from either fairy tales, TV, people around me in comparison. So some of the things we talked about with happiness in general, it's not comparing. It's not expecting someone to be someone different than they are, and taking responsibility for my own life, my own actions, and not blaming them on people. So that's
I
a little bit about what I've done. And I think the last few years is take responsibility, like radical responsibility.
I think that's huge. I love that actually, because that was going to be a point that I wanted to talk about is like owning your stuff, own your stuff.
Mm,
And I think radical forgiveness for yourself, for your parents, or maybe that story, and having the opportunity to change the narrative. It doesn't have to be a certain way, like you said, like the expectation, or if you're not happy with your relationship and you want to see it differently, you have that opportunity to heal and grow and change the story. And I think that that's the beautiful thing is that you can change the story anytime. You don't have to carry the burdens of your past. You don't have to carry the burdens of generations before you. You can stop the cycle if you choose to. So I love that owning your responsibility in your life for how you want to see it. And I think communication's key. I think you can have those open dialogue. I think I never felt maybe comfortable to have
mm,
those deep conversations with my parents. And I think as I get older and I have 3 children who are getting older all the time, and I think time is so precious, and
yeah.
you don't get it back. So I think for me, on Monday, my parents came down, watched my son play rugby, and they stayed for dinner. And was I as productive in my workday? Absolutely not. Are those moments that I cherish because, my parents are getting older, they're not going to be around forever. So I'm taking those moments instead of, blaming that I didn't get the work done that I wanted to. I really cherish that time. And I think time is one of the most important things that you can give someone. And I'm certainly appreciating all those little moments. And I think gratitude and appreciation go a really long way.
Yeah, time is a big one because, not to be morbid, but we're all gonna die. So that's the honest truth. And when our parents are getting older, I don't go home and I'm not hanging out with friends or doing other things. It is more that one-on-one time with them. And I'm curious, like, I love how you're making the relationship of your beliefs and understanding them now and having those open, honest conversations. And I wanted to add something with that. I think when you're willing to be honest with yourself, then you can start being more honest and have that authenticity with other people. So if you're willing to take a look at yourself first or do some work, then it just opens up this empowerment to have those conversations with other people. And to add, I'm a more recent stepmom. So that family dynamic has been really interesting, like coming into teenage lives. There's a part of me that's like,
Welcome, welcome
was
to
I like this when I
teenagers.
was a teenager? Or and it's just like it's a whole different world. And how I thought maybe I would show up or I didn't, it doesn't really matter, I guess. And again, going back to compassion for our families, or how those families are those connections are so closely linked to our overall well-being, because they make a big impact. Like the kids' lives, I know with Cole and Tristan, like it makes a big impact to be able to support them in different ways, just like your kids. And there is no rule book. Like being a parent is got to be just excruciating sometimes, and yet having the most love and possibility of it all. So
It's
if
the
you
hardest
haven't,
job. It's the hardest job. I will tell you, being a parent is the hardest job.
yeah, and those relationships. So it's I think very critical. And if anything else, this conversation, I hope you've maybe can sit back and be like, okay, well, where is my relationship with these people? Whatever you're, again, like family dynamics are so different to everyone. So whatever you identify as, like, not your friends, like I have tons of friends that I would call sisters, and
For sure.
pseudo aunts and grand, like whatever. That's not what I'm talking about. Like when you were really younger, like what did that family nucleus look like, and take a stand for it. Because when you want a quality of life and well-being, like maybe you can let go of things or appreciate things and connect to things a little bit differently to discover more of what you want, because that will help you, I feel more fulfilled, feel more happy, being at rest with some of these major relationships in our lives.
I love that. I think as a parent, it's taught me so many things, to be honest. It's taught me patience, it's taught me compassion, it's taught me love in a form that I never have experienced before. And I think it's also taught me some grace, just to be compassionate with myself. You know, I'm a single mom. I was trying to do it all and I was imperfect. And also recognizing the imperfection and the beauty of that, but also being able to apologize to my kids when I fall short, and not always being perfect and maybe losing my temper sometimes, but being able to go to them and to apologize. I think that's a huge thing. I think that's a huge lesson for kids to recognize, yeah, I'm an adult. I'm your mom, but I'm not perfect. And sometimes I fall short, but I'm willing to own it. And I think that goes back to the responsibility of not only just being a human being, that we all make mistakes, but that my kids can see that I'm not perfect. And maybe it will show them that, you know, when they have kids, if they have kids, that they can have that grace and compassion with themselves too. I think that's a big thing. I don't ever recall my parents apologizing to me growing up. Not saying that they didn't, I just don't remember it. But I think that's a big thing as a single parent. I try and do it all, and I'm not perfect. And sometimes I'm late. Sometimes I miss things. Sometimes I forget about things. But I'm human, and we are all humans, and we all make mistakes. So I think as a mom, that's really that's a lesson I've really learned, is that I'm not perfect. I'm not, you know, I'm not Martha Stewart getting dinner on the table. Sometimes we are running, sometimes we are rushing, sometimes it's McDonald's, and, you know, not having judgment, I guess, to myself, and just wanting to be better for them all the time, but also recognizing my shortcomings and being able to apologize.
And that's authenticity and its finest in vulnerability, right? Because if we aren't able to be vulnerable or work with these people, like that could be some huge healing. There's a lot of healing in being able to talk about these things, or recognize that maybe when your inner child is just screaming, or I'm learning now there's an inner teenager. And I think that's when mine has been so ragey lately, like
There's an
stepping
inner
into
teenager. I've
I
not heard of this. This is amazing. This is another episode. The inner
yes, and I think
teenager.
it's very, very important for those people who are raising teenagers, if they feel like some rage or that inner teenage angst inside them. I've heard it, like there's inner child healing, inner teenage
Mm,
healing, and because I've stepped into
so
these gentlemen's
interesting.
lives when they're teenagers, there's different triggers that come up, reminding me of relationships when I was that young, or again these resentments or relationships that that haven't been amazing, and now they're just there's some more friction to them. And I truly feel it's just because I've hit a timeline where I can see a
Mhm.
teenager and the hormones and everything else. So it's reminding me of when I was in grade 9, 10, 11, 12, or whatever. So that could be another episode, though, just thinking of like if you're parenting think about maybe what you're healing from what you needed to experience too, and that could help with the compassion or how you want to show up for your kids. Though having that invitation for candor, having that invitation to just to speak what's on their heart. And I really admire my partner because he's got a great relationship with his kids, and like sometimes I don't agree. Like we're rerouting house rules as we move into a new house, and that's mostly because it's like, I'm just not okay with this. So it's having again communication, those conversations.
I think
And the more
boundaries too. Boundaries are really important. Like you are cohabitating and setting the rules and expectations so that everybody is clear on what's happening in that household. I think that's key. And communication starts, boundaries are important. I think being present too in the moment is so important. How many times are you on your phone or you're trying to do a million things and not really paying attention to maybe a conversation that somebody's trying to have with you? So I'm guilty of that as well, and just really trying to be more present when I'm with my kids and really honoring that time and space. I think
mm,
that's really key as well the technological age that we are in, where phones are everywhere and everything is just so on demand. I think it's easy to get lost in that space. So I think for me, that's definitely been something I've been trying to do. Like when I'm done my work day, my phone's off, or I'm not checking it every 5 seconds, like doing the mad scroll. So I think that's a big thing too, is that you're present when you are in those moments with your key people.
yeah, I heard someone, I forget where it was, but they said when your kids are really little, like make sure as soon as they come home, you're like, oh my goodness, how was your day? So excited. And then it was funny after, like, do not do that with teenagers. Cause I was thinking, like, would I do that to them? And I'm like, pretty sure they would be like, what is your problem, lady? Like, get out of here. And it's like very like, it's a life cycle. It's very different. And treating each child independently as their own and
And they are so different. My 3 kids are dramatically
crazy.
all very different. It's crazy that they came from the same parents, but they're all dramatically different and have their own strengths and weaknesses. So yeah, you can't and that comparison, like don't do the comparison game with your kids. I promise you it's not healthy. They're all so different.
What a topic. We can talk, I'm sure, more of this. So I think from myself leaving you is if you want to check in on like your level of happiness on a scale of 1 to 10, 0, well, I guess one like being non-existent and 10 being amazing with your family, just take a notice. Maybe where is one relationship that you want to I wouldn't even say men though, just kind of come at peace with or support differently if you think it's been off. Maybe that is having a conversation, maybe it's letting go of some resentment, or maybe you just haven't connected with them a lot and it's been on your heart. So I would say to boost your happiness and well-being, like take a check-in with your family and see where that sits and make that first step in that effort because that's on you. That's what you're empowered to do. So that's what I'm going to leave with, Deb. How about you?
I love that. Time. Go spend some time with the people that you love and care about. I think that's so important, and it's something I'm recognizing more and more. So go spend, and it's Mother's Day weekend. So happy Mother's Day to all those mothers out there.
Yeah.
And if you're missing your mom,
Mm.
just hold them dearly in your heart, and just know that you are loved. And I wish you all an amazing rest of your week. Be sure to see us Monday live on YouTube to kickstart your week. And we will be back next Thursday with an episode of Connected Conversations. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed the show, please share with your friends and rate and recommend on iTunes or Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts. There will be links to more great resources in the description.